Hello, everybody. Good morning. As you know, I'm Dan Winter, fractalfield.com, fractalu.com, and we've had all kinds of fun over the years. And I have a very special guest today, Dalia Ali. Hello, Dalia.
Hello there.
So Dalia is from Egypt, and she has a deep Egyptian background with Egyptian mysticism, lucid dreaming background, has worked with plasma, has a professional background. And our subject today is how her lucid dreaming and then plasma intense experiences led her to literally embed inside the sacred Anak family, the Enki, particularly the Thoth Ningishzida, how intimately Thoth Ningishzida became her guide in direct daily and visual communication experiences, and the science of how that happened with plasma, and then later the meaning in terms of the intent for that family's relationship to our race. For example, as Elena has pioneered, it's quite clear apparently that what we call Old Sumerian is literally the old Anak language, meaning that if you don't know what the Anak culture was doing, you can't possibly know what Sumerian is about. And the key family there is, as Dalia has literally embedded inside of Enki, particularly Thoth, Ningishzida, and also has major insights into Enlil, which in many cases, this conversation parallels beautifully what I've been doing with Elena Danaan for many years, and they're powerful memories and useful. But there's some specific areas where there's a bit of difference here, particularly about, Enlil is not totally the bad guy. No, he was a rule follower, and there's a little more to it. And also, I've been teaching more on the detailed physics of how their crystal Girku technology worked based on charge collapse, where we get much more detailed on the physics. But that's not the focus today. The focus today is really how Dalia's insight into what Enki, Thoth, Ningishzida were doing then, and what that means for now with respect to the Anak Empire and their relationship to the human species. And she has some incredible insights, I found. So first, though, Dalia, let's say a little bit more about you, perhaps, like how you got into this, what happened to start this.
Yeah, thank you Dan for this introduction. Like you put it perfectly. So this has been a long journey for me of remembrance. It really has been a journey of remembrance, and it started, I would say, 2017 after my mother passed away. I had an awakening, a spiritual awakening. Who I am is Dalia, and I'm from Egypt. From an Egyptian mother and father. I've lived there for 25 years. And then came the revolution in 2011, and I realized that I needed to travel and start, what you might call the hero's journey. And I sort of started my dream of becoming a filmmaker, and I thought, where else to go but the US, right? So that's how I migrated to the US. And it's interesting because when I went there, this is when my journey of remembrance started. You would think it should have started in Egypt, but I actually needed to get away from Egypt to be able to think clearly, and get away from certain distortions, unfortunately, that are in the grid over there. So I needed to be as far away as possible to go inwards, to go within. And that's when I started.
Amazingly,
right?
Dalia landed in New York City, if you can believe. Is there a spiritual dream possible in New York City? I'm not sure. But the proof of the pudding here is she became a successful filmmaker in New York, question mark. You want to tell them a little about that?
Yeah. Well, I started in LA a couple of years in LA. I met a wonderful team of filmmakers. We worked on a documentary there called The Square, and we got Oscar nominated. And that was a major success.
What was the title?
The Square.
The
So
Square.
it talks about the events of the Egyptian Revolution.
Oh, I see.
And the Arab Spring in 2011. So it was kind of a big bang. And then it took me to New York. And there I met also amazing filmmakers, and we worked on several documentary projects. Made it all to the festival circuits, major festivals, and all of that.
And Dalia became a rather professional film editor with the software in process and has many
Yeah,
credentials, actually.
that's my main career as a film editor. And
So there
but I
you were in New York, and then all of a sudden,
exactly. Well, I've always had a spiritual side to me ever since I was little. Like I always engaged with Arabic calligraphy, for example. From a very, very young age, I would always just be infatuated with Arabic calligraphy. And later I found that there's something about the Arabic letters um, that equate to the energy of the vortex field. So
beautiful,
it translates perfectly,
beautiful.
not just with the letter shapes, but also with the sounds.
Perfect.
And
And not to brag, but just, when I did the origins of the Hebrew alphabet from the spiral on the Taurus, we also did the Arabic, which was literally the energy, an angle of the field effect approach. So you're literally indexing charge domains. So calligraphy is physics, and beautiful.
absolutely. And I remember when we attended the conference and you were talking about how do we translate the vortex mechanics to children. And I particularly remembered a mantra that we have in ancient Egypt that kids to this very day still use when they celebrate Ramadan every year. So this is where things get when cultures collide and histories collide. So the children in Egypt, it's an old ritual, if you want to call it that, an old tradition that every year in Ramadan they would get the lanterns that traditionally would have like a candle, which is the flame, and they would go around and in the street, and the children would start swirling the lantern around and say wahawiya wahawi eyoha. And if you were to write the letters of this mantra, it translates exactly to the vortex field dynamics in terms of like creating an implosion. So essentially they're saying a mantra that will create an implosion in the field. And because for children, they have pure intention. So it works so well.
Beautiful, amazing. So could you say that again? Wahawi, Wahawiya.
Wahawi. Yeah. Wahawi.
And that would
Iyoha.
and that would transliterate.
There is no transliteration in a way that I understand it. Maybe somebody who understands ancient Egyptian language can tell us more about the meaning, but I see it as energy, as movements, and as activations. And the wow, that's the spiral in the vortex.
In fact, the W that appears in Cyrillic as well, which is the two spirals. It's perfect. It's wow.
Wow, it's literally wow. And how you say the letter wow in Arabic, you write it as wow. So it's the codes are there. They're embedded in our languages, especially I would say the Arabic language, which you have studied also the Hebrew language, but there's definitely a lot of parallels. But the Arabic language carries the signature of vortex field dynamics within the pronunciation and also the calligraphy.
Perfect. It can't help flash upon Joseph Smith was studying old Egyptian called Akkadian, old Akkadian, which we now know the ET origins of, when he needed to use that to interpret with the Urim and Thummim the burnt golden letters on the gold copper foil, which now we know is ancient Anak genetic records, actually, which was the phase angle of a sequence of donuts. There are many parallels here, and we could go on and on, but it's beautiful that you made that connection. I love it. So then the next thing that happened was
so that was just my early beginnings, fascinated and obsessed with Arabic calligraphy, and then always been fascinated in understanding psychology and the soul dynamics and everything, but also psychology of human beings and how they think and how they relate to one another and how we all relate to one another. So fast forward to my time in New York. I'm just going to skip ahead in time. And after my mother passed is really when I started to get a vivid sense of the other side, you would call it, or what's behind the veil. And it's as if a part of me, which is my mother, has, transferred to the other side. And now I have this connection. So it became embodied after my mom passed. Well, it's unfortunate and tragic, of course, and there was so much grief around it. But the beauty of it, it was a major point in my initiation journey. And around that time is when I really started to understand the subconscious mind and how we can induce a state of trance and go deeper to communicate with, our higher selves, or with my mother, or because I started to get lucid experiences of her and see her in another place, in another dimension for quite some time. They faded gradually because I think she has traveled further where she needed to go. But that in between liminal space of her passageway, I saw her the day after she passed. I saw her stepping into the sun. So her return journey back into soul, SOL, sun. I saw that, and she looked at me and smiled, and she walked in on it. And it was not a dream per se. It was, I get a specific type of communication that happens right before waking up. And it would be the last image I would see, because it's almost like a flash that kind of, assures remembrance in a way, because it's a flash. It's a different transmission than, for example, a full lucid experience or another dream. And I can speak more about the different types because I've been experiencing all kinds of them throughout.
That's so powerful.
My life, yeah.
We're in the midst of teaching this as physics, that we now know it is literally longitudinal coherence into the array that enables the lucid dreaming. You literally embed in the array. And I would like to announce very humbly that my 6th book is now well underway. The Fractal Physics of Soul, Our Only Destiny Among Stars. And that's exactly what these themes are about. And also had a recent experience with Valerie's friend who died literally stepping into the sun. And I didn't see it so much as felt it incredibly. So anyway, I love your story.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm super excited about your book, Dan. Like, you have no idea. I can't wait. So
actually, you've helped me. It's all good. It's all good. But then back to Dalia's story. So there she is in New York having some transcendental experiences, but New York's a bit heavy, and she's become a successful professional, but oh dear, New York City. And then COVID, is that right?
Yeah, but there is, I think, in between story that I need to mention, which is my beginning of my connection to my ancient Egyptian lineage, specifically with Isis. And it started with Isis. And through the lucid experiences, she took me through a series of initiations. And a big part of it was really facing who I am and facing my soul on a fundamental level, which essentially means going back to ancestral memory and seeing where there has been blockages because of trauma or ancestral traumas, which I think a lot of women can relate to this, like the entire witch hunt experience or being burned at the stake for speaking truth when people were not ready for it. That is very vivid, I think, in all of our consciousness. And there's, blockages around that, and you can hear it in my voice, not necessarily personal, but because, we're all radiating collective energies. And when we speak about them, about something that still needs more clearing, it means we can pay attention to it. And women specifically can pay attention, but of course, men also, because they had a role to play in it. And we've all been men and women. So it's not like about pointing fingers, but it's about really allowing ourselves to feel those where there has been a gap, let's just say, in connection.
A break in memory. And that's the physics we teach, that the healing of trauma is basically during the intense pain, you dissociate, and then there's a break in memory. And it's the continuity of the long wave, longitudinal, which is the physics of soul. So any break in memory, which means the body ain't whole, basically. So it's the old story. How do you put that back? Pull yourself together, Osiris,
Yes, absolutely. And Isis needed to bring me to that space so that I can maintain my connection with her, which is the coherent longitudinal wave that you speak about. And really the physics of this is very important to understand how it relates to some of the, I would call, catalytic healing experiences that a lot of people in the collective have been experiencing. They need to understand that, and we all need to understand that it's crucial and it's key to connecting with the higher array. So in that way, Isis was an ancestral spirit guide of mine, part of my galactic family, big part of my galactic family, like a motherly. I mean, she's the mother goddess of all, right? Isis. She's she was one of the most worshipped deities, not just in Egypt, in the entire world, and her temples are in France and all over.
If Enki was Osiris, then Isis was. I mean, it all fits together. And spoiler alert, where we're going with this then is later when Dalia literally embeds so deeply into the Thoth Ningishzida story. Thoth, we know we're going to explain, and that's coming up here in great detail, how Thoth's literal incarnations as both Tut and Jesus, and healing those pains enables him to reincarnate in the species. Big story. That's the story that's coming up here. So you can see, if you get the principle here, that you've got to relive where the trauma broke up the memory, or you can't pull yourself together. And so we're going there beautifully. But I thought, do you want to move toward the Hawaii story now? Or
absolutely. So skip ahead in time, and during COVID is, world is upside down and everybody's working from home remotely. And I've just been feeling this urge, this desire within me to go live in Hawaii, which I visited in 2019, exactly a year before COVID. And I just felt a connection to the water there. And I've always loved the water. Even in Egypt growing up, I always had a special connection with the water. And which is such an Enki, Enki is really the god of water. Yeah.
The fish
god. Low. Yeah. It's all in there. It's all in the water consciousness, and water carries memory. And so I just felt this urge to go to Hawaii. And as soon as COVID happened and we were allowed to work remotely, that's when I traveled to Hawaii.
And ended up living in an incredible place there. Incredible story.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have been working on a documentary project at the time, and I was working remotely with them. And at the same time, I was reconnecting to the land, reconnecting to nature. So really, some people call it rewilding, but on the basic level, I just felt the need to step away from the city. Because the more that I opened up in my experiences and my remembrances and my lucid experiences, the more my aura grew, and the harder for me it became to be at a compressed, let's just say, dense population. And I needed to, let's just say, have better armors or shields or better protection. I like protection better. Like your aura, the aura is protective in its own way. But when you're expanding your aura, it's like stepping outside of your comfort zone. It doesn't feel like you have a grip on it very much to stabilize it. So it's much better to stabilize it somewhere in nature. So that the growth, the expansion really is more embodied, let's just say.
And there you were in this incredible, pristine Hawaii environment by the sea, living alone, and suddenly you begin to have these intense bliss experiences?
Yeah, let's just say intense, insane, lucid experiences. And I want to just do an emphasis. There wasn't a need inside of me. There was an urge inside of me. They didn't just land on me. I was seeking them out, and I was seeking to find the answers, and I was asking the right questions, questions that are coming from my soul. Because at some point you can't really see beyond what's happening. Some situations in life are too hard to fathom, and our logic really cannot really fully grasp it anymore. So you want to go to a higher perspective, which is a higher array perspective, origin story perspective.
Origin, exactly. And who Dalia was raised in Egypt, and who did they call gods in Egypt, and what does that family mean? ?
Yeah. So I have been maintaining a connection with my higher self with meditation consistently every day since 2020, like more consistently. And in my questioning and in my super meditation, I have learned to induce trance for myself, which is, you could call self-hypnosis or going into the theta state. From the beta to the alpha, and then from the alpha to the theta. I studied the science of it, the frequencies, the heart coherence meditations. All of these are tools that are incredibly helpful to be in that state of coherence. And that's what led me to have my lucid experiences with, first it was Enki. And one night I was sleeping and I had this lucid experience on, really I was on my bed, but my mind was elsewhere. And I found myself in a lab with what I would call the creator. I understood that this is my creator. And it was a scientist, and he was wearing glasses. And he looked like someone you would see in Silicon Valley or something, like very gracious. But, for me, it felt familiar, like, oh, I could relate the form that he appeared in, or that I was able to perceive him in, was super familiar. Like, it felt like a family member. And so, because it's very much telepathic, lucid experiences, there's not many. For me, I do not perceive words so much. It's more telepathic. And my galactic family, they're telepathic. And so we don't use words as much. So that's why the names and everything, they come later. In the telepathic experience, the lucid experience, it's very much like you're in the scene, as if you're watching a film. I didn't need to ask him what his name is, so he didn't tell me, because that's not what the meeting was about. He was there to let me know about the genetic hybridization experiment and how humans were created. And that's when he explained, well, actually, he showed me in his lab, and he showed me the Earth is more like, these aquariums, terrariums, where you would have like a garden, let's say, inside of a glass bowl, and you're able to just like watch it grow, but it's pretty much self-sustainable, these terrariums. And so he would show me what he was looking at. And he would show me just that perspective of how he was seeing the Earth. For him, it was a terrarium.
It's pretty, it might be a little scary to think of it that way, but we've always taught the idea the creator, the Enki, was doing a genetic program. Maybe it would help. I'm not sure it's appropriate, but so then later you were here with us in France at the conference, and Valerie was helping you with the Therify, and the intensity of that plasma triggered. We're going to talk about the fact that where the plasma becomes dense, it becomes by definition a communications node, embedding the physics of telepathy, all of that, a plasma longitudinal node. And that created this experience of.
Yeah, the spaceship. Well, I had an experience on the spaceship, and it's an implosion, the experience of implosion, which is embedding to the higher array. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, well, so I at first I thought that was one of the first times you actually saw Enki in his lab, or no, it wasn't.
No, I saw Enki before my implosion experience.
I see.
I was able to travel with my consciousness there, and it was much like third eye, because I get third eye images and third eye experiences. And I'm able to perceive images and have communications telepathically. This is one mode of communication. Another mode of communication is like, and that is in between, that lucid state is in between waking and being a little asleep. But then there's the other lucid experiences where I'm in deep sleep, and then my soul really is projected upwards, and I'm there myself. It's not so much like a third eye projection film I'm seeing and communicating telepathically. It's like I'm there myself, and I can experience everything, happening to me, which is really happening to my higher self. But I then become my higher self and have the experience myself. This is the deeper state. And this deeper state was my experience with Ningishzida / Thoth. And that was in the spaceship. But that was after I had already visited Enki through telepathic communication.
And was that with the Therify also, or with the plasma?
Yeah, so on the spaceship, I found myself in the spaceship, and I found myself as if, I was not in my body anymore. I was in my higher self body. You can say that I was in my higher self body, but I could also see myself. So I had my consciousness. I could step in and outside of the body. I could watch it as it's happening, or I could step into the body and experience it as it's happening to me. It's really hard to explain, but it's as if your consciousness really is everywhere. Your consciousness can access different angles and can embed into the body or step outside of the body. The consciousness has, the soul consciousness has this ability to project in and out of the body. And especially on this dimension, it's very fluid.
And many people have talked about this kind of thing before. This is actually not new. We now know a little bit more about the physics, longitudinal nodes, plasma projection, physics of lucid dreaming. But this is really, in some ways, kind of an old story. But if you don't mind my curiosity, could you sort out for us a little bit about how you knew the difference between Enki versus Thoth Ningishzida, for example?
Yeah, with Enki, I knew that he was the creator. Like it was a complete, it was a different presence. It was a different presence because Enki, I was relating to him as his creation. He was my god, but I was also his daughter. So, but like, because he's the creator god of the humans. And so his presence and his aura was different versus Ningishzida Thoth. He was directly like my higher self. So I was him in the lucid experience. I was him. I was in the male body of Ningishzida, which is more intimate because it was me. And then I had my father on the spaceship. So there's always this father-son or father-daughter connection. And this is how you understand the difference between higher self and then higher self, for example, because it's dimensional. So you embed into a larger array and then you embed into the larger array. So in that way, I would understand this as I was able to access Ea as a presence and have a communication with him. And then in the lucid experience, I compressed more. And this is where I would consider this to be more of a challenging experience, because then you really need to be in nature. And then you really need to be sort of the astral hygiene that I know you speak about and a big proponent for. Because if you really want to compress so that you can have these really deep experiences and relive higher self memories,
and
that is when you need certain parameters, let's say.
Embedding, some kind of plasma. And so that's where we want to go with this, that the intensity with which Dalia became embedded in that family and literally identified, be literally embedded in that family. And the intensity of that memory enabled her to relive directly and vividly and personally the Thoth Ningishzida experience. And that's where we're going with this, which is so powerful and maybe a little bit hard to swallow. And so I prepared just a little 3-minute interlude here for just a moment to review how important Thoth is, Ningishzida. And, Elena, I think partially correctly says that, well, they sent Ningishzida Ishka Thoth along with Enki to be his alchemy teacher because they knew that Enlil Yahweh was going to be trouble, and then. But remember how essential this is, that, for example, when Graham Hancock, he says that like a dozen times in the ancient apocalypse, this amazing savior stepped out of the water with 7 partners. And look it up in Sumerian, it's called Apkalu. So Hermes Thoth steps out of the water with 7 partners and saves a civilization. This is all of Hancock's work. Well, great. What Hancock doesn't know, and he says this happened to, in Asia, this happened in South America, and this happened there, and this happened in Scandinavia. It happened all over the world. And it's the same Apkalu. And this is what Hancock doesn't actually get it. Oh, it's the same guy. Thoth, Ningishzida, Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, Tutankhamun. In fact, the Tutankhamun Prophecies, that famous book, is saying that Tutankhamun is literally Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha because of his solar physics. That's the theme of that book. So where we're going with this is, Thoth's agenda is, Oannes, all these names we have are the same guy. So the physics of the Hermes, the physics of the Caduceus, the physics of conjugation, and deeper than that, and this is where I'm going in my personal work now, is to say what they meant by Adam Kadmon is literally, if we can teach the physics of soul.com, then billions of children do not need to lose their souls because we can learn what this damn Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, electrosmog, 5G is doing to fractionate the souls of billions of children today, because our scientists are too stupid to teach the physics of soul.com, which is indirectly or more directly the message behind Thoth. And just a final thought, remember, Thothmosis is the name of the royal line of Egypt, meaning sons of Thoth, who is quite real, meaning the whole royal story of Egypt is the story of Thoth. Thoth is a name Thule for Atlantis. Thoth, Tahuti, was later called TWD, which was meant the line of David. So everywhere the Jews say the line of David, that means the sons of Thoth. And in the Christian tradition, well documented, whether it's the Templars and Thoth, that what they call the Grail bloodline is quite literally, absolutely the bloodline of Thoth, in the sense specifically that, as Dalia is about to explain, the Thoth incarnation becomes not just a Tutankhamun incarnation out of Egypt, House of the Messiah, all those books about the Egyptian origins of the Essenes. Moses was probably Akhenaten, who was probably, his father was called Thothmosis, Thoth. So what we call the Grail bloodline, the Jesus Magna story, is directly, and the Templars said this explicitly, it's the line of Thoth. So what we're saying here is the central character of the history of humans is this guy. And now here's Dalia, and she goes up in there, and Thoth is showing her what it looks like to be inside the painful incarnations of both Tutankhamun and Jesus, which we now know is the same guy. And Dalia is seeing their visions from inside their eyes. Oh my. So anyway, I carry it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
I mean, Dalia told me she saw what it looked like to be on the hill at Calvary, and she looked at the town. She knew exactly what Tutankhamun was going through in more detail when he died than any historian ever figured out, like who put the poison in his eye. I mean, she's been there. Hello, I consider this interesting myself. Anyway, so that's why I was so enthused when Dalia said she might tell her story.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate your transmission. Thank you.
My enthusiasm.
I just want to say that I am honored to be in this bloodline, and I'm honored to have this connection to my galactic ancestral family, and to be connected to Thoth, and to be connected to the seven, as you said.
Apkallu.
And I want to say that my soul essence is in the constellation of Taurus, and the bull, the sacred bull of heaven. This is where we come from. This is where the seven we come from. We are all suckling from the belly of the sacred bull in heaven.
Our town in France, Taur, Inya, the Taurus, the Taur, was the cross point of the Urs, it's all about the bear. And anyway, go ahead, Taurus.
Yeah, and what some people might know as the Pleiades, the seven, what they call the seven sisters. This is essentially where we are, the seven, but we're also connected to Antares, which is the Scorpio, the heart of the Scorpion. So let's just say the constellation and our zodiac signs. This is all part of the ancient family, the ancient galactic family. And this is where my role in remembrance is to remember who I am and know exactly where I come from, know exactly where my soul comes from. And I do want to refer to the spaceship experience as the catalyst, the instigating point, the implosion that catalyzed my embedding into the higher self array, which is my ancient galactic family array, to be able to retrieve the memories and to be able to have a straight connection that is ongoing every day, consistently, through the dimensions, through the technology on the spaceship that my higher self Thoth has experienced himself on the spaceship, which I will tell you about, and through my earthly experience in my earthly body, as Dalia, experiencing on the plasma bed experience in the conference with Valerie, and then later another one with the Dan in presence. So I've had two major sessions on the Therifying, and the last one was everything is ordained. The last one was in October, and this activated, let's just say, the Kundalini awakening, what you might refer to as a Kundalini awakening, which is really a transfiguration process.
That is.
Embedding to the Ka and the Ba. Yeah. And these are ancient Egyptian terms that we can get into detail later, but it is literally like shaking the human spine, like in a blender, retrieving, awakening at the bottom of the spine, awakening, let's just say the Kundalini, the life force energy, the snake, the serpent, that Caduceus, when the two snakes spiral together, you're awakening that, the Wadjet in ancient Egypt, which is a winged serpent that then becomes, I think the other one is called Negbet or something. I cannot remember the exact ancient Egyptian terminology, but there's two, which is the flying, the bird. So it's basically the serpent and the bird. And if you see the Tutankhamun on his crown, he always had the serpent, and next to it is the bird. Yeah. So this is essentially what we're talking about. This is the technology of our ancient galactic family as Anunnaki that have later traveled into Egypt and became the ancient Egyptians. And then they spread the monotheistic religions. And then they went to the indigenous people and they really, let's just say, seeded the entire human population with these methodologies and ideas. And there has been corruption and distortions throughout the years. And we can speak in detail about the distortions and what caused them, but let's say it's a joint effort between humans and the Anu, because there are distortions that come from the humans, and there is distortion that comes from the gods, and it then can become chaotic and messy. But the part of Thoth returning as Heru, as Horus, is to correct the mess and to help the humankind survive and to be able to continue. Because otherwise, then the experiment gets scratched and a deluge occurs. And these have been the catastrophes all over, across time, where really the Heru, which is the ancient Egyptian name of Horus, and that's where the hero's journey comes from. It comes from Heru as the galactic space traveler who comes in to intervenes in times of great urgency.
Like now.
Like now.
Yeah, and this is the myth of the birth of the Heru with 1,000 faces. This is the same archetype, and so Apkallu fits the story. And the other thing just to say is, in my mentor book on the physics of Kundalini with Ben Thoth and later Lisa Nella, the name for Kundalini in Iceland was the great masts of God. Your aura gets so huge that someone that's clairvoyant is seeing a great mast from a distance. And this is actually a place where, the overarching plasma entity. And remember, the Anaks, they had a word for Tantra. They knew what big aura meant. Actually, this is good physics. And introducing then, I could be wrong here, but where you want to go in this story, part of the example might be then because you recognize you are part of the body of this big family, quite literally inside it, that then the issue then in part became Thoth was so traumatized with his lifetime as Tutankhamun and how he died that he had to process that with your help, or else he couldn't finish da-da-da. Is that where we're going in the story at this moment, or?
We could definitely go there. And I want to speak about the crucifixion as technology. It's a light technology, essentially the symbol of the Christ, the cross, just like the Ka, which is ancient Egyptian technology. It's literally a way of embedding into the higher array, but in different geometries. So one of the technologies is used to connect to the lineage as it relates to like human blood with Anu blood, which is the human royal bloodline, which is the hybridization of the both, and the Thutmose lineage. You embed
Grail
into that. Also one?
The Grail lineage, sorry.
You embed into that with a specific technology, and then throughout the Thutmose line itself, a son can connect to the father, and the father can connect to the father, and you can connect to the powers through the crucifixion technology, which is the cross. These are all light technologies of being embedded into a higher array, ancient soul memory, essentially the immortal soul.
Yeah.
The whole idea of being immortal. This is the part where we're not glamorizing what being immortal is, because it means you have to remember everything, including.
Yes. And this is Jesus as Issa saying, I and my Father in heaven are one. Now we're seeing the plasma physics of the Father in heaven, the higher array here. And
Absolutely.
that's where I thought, when you felt the pain that Thoth felt in the Tutankhamun, later the Jesus incarnation, and how you help process that helps enabling the finish of the mission, question mark. I found that interesting.
Absolutely, because I am here to collect ancient memory, which is ancient trauma memory that has been blocking the connection. Let's say that it has been causing the distortion in the Thutmose's line, which really has reverberated into the chaos that we're living in now. There has been corruptions, there has been distortions, but this is a whole other topic. But part of it, let's just stay focused on exactly what you said. It's grabbing in these memories, reliving them and clearing them, processing them. It's the shamanic, it's the what you can call shadow work on a very fundamental level that we are, all of us know what that means. It's basically you're going to where areas of dissociation, disconnection, and you're retrieving the painful memory, reliving it, experiencing the feelings in your body, and finding and basically continuing the grid so that it's no longer a gap, it's no longer a void, it's plugged in. So it's an act of plugging into
Beautiful.
the array, which is from an electrical term, it's an act from an electrical perspective, it's an act of empowerment. It's like you're plugging into the electric circuitry of the entire grid. And this is how we light our lamps. You could never have electricity if you're not plugged into the grand circuit array, right?
Yeah.
If there's a fuse,
Yeah.
you're not going to be plugged in and you're not going to light up. So you need to fix the fuse where there has been a fuse to be able to be part of the grid.
Yeah, if there's a hole in the array, there's a hole in memory, then the array cannot handle plasma density, and the array cannot literally come alive. That's one way of talking about haven't got time for the pain.
Yeah, and this is yeah, but haven't got time for the pain, which is, I also heard it as haven't got time for the pain. Because if humans don't have time for the pain, the gods have time for the pain because they know how important it is to save humanity. If humanity does not or cannot save itself, we'll step in and we'll go to the origin story and retrieve those origin memories from which all of human pain, dysfunction, dissociation stem from, and we'll fix it at the origin level. Let's just say these are very painful, tragic stories, especially the life of Thoth.
Yeah, and
this has incredibly been the most difficult.
Yes, I was wanting to do a little background on that, like I did Thoth. So the fact that the Tutankhamun is a direct lineage of Thoth, there are many books out of Egypt, House of the Messiah. I particularly like the one that that Dalia and I spoke about. It's called Secret Places of the Lion, in which they planned for 300 years to get the incarnation of Tut right, but the war between Amun and Atun mean the whole theater for the Grail line had to move out of Egypt to the Essenes, and that's where it becomes the Jesus. The point was, it's elaborately described in the lineage of the incarnations: Thoth, Tutankhamun, Jesus. This is a direct, and it's been connected before. And so, for example, as I told Dalia, when I was in Egypt, I don't know, 30 years ago, and fainted in the gold sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, and I was sure at that point I was Tutankhamun, but then I met about 5 other friends who were positive they were Akhenaten, and I later decided to call it a fragment of soul memory. But
absolutely,
I remembered when he couldn't, they were using the crystals to control the weather, and then they ultimately used Tutankhamun's body to control the rain, and I'm a rainmaker and have been for many years, goldenmean.info/rain. That's a fragment of the soul memory of Tutankhamun, because every pharaoh knows they'd lose their job if they couldn't make the Nile flood on time. This was the secret yearning, how the yearning steers the DNA. So anyway, I had a sense of a fragment of soul memory there, which is a very small example compared to what Dalia has been through, I thought. And that's why I thought, Dalia, if you told some of the detail of what you saw in the pain of Tutankhamun versus the pain of I mean, the detail, it might
Absolutely.
convince people, oh,
I do want to just comment on what you just said, because the memory of the place, so the places, the locations, when you went into the sarcophagus, so that carries the plasma of the memory in the location itself.
yeah,
And since you are connected to that bloodline, from near or from far, it is in your DNA, whatever the percentage is.
yeah,
It's as much as your soul can handle, let's just say.
for sure.
It's as, yeah, so you were able to connect to the grid from the memory of the location. This is why when we go do pilgrimages or we visit sacred sites, it's us connecting to the memories of the place, and in turn plugging our bodies into the body of the earth, the memory of the collective of the earth, which is the grid. And I want to call this the Maat, the concept of Maat in ancient Egypt, which is the flower of life sequence, the flower of life, fractal geometry. This is the grid, this is the array, the magnetic field that we want to maintain pristine and in perfection at all times. And so the earth, for the earth to be covered in a pristine and perfect Maat field, which is the bliss field, which is exactly what you explain in your physics. And you have very practical steps on how to achieve that with technology, with the equations and everything. But heart intention, pure heart is essential, which is what you talk about also being part of a shareable wave, right? Like,
Absolutely.
you speak about this much better than I ever will, but what I can relay is my own personal experience and from my lineage and my own lived experience with this as an example and a reference, so that people can understand what they have access to, essentially, and the power that everyone has to plug into their soul lineage, their soul, and plug into their higher self matrix or their higher self array, retrieve their own personal memories so that they can also, in a way, participate in the repairing of the grid of the planet Earth. So it really comes down to the personal responsibility that we all share. And because I'm a reflection of you and you're a reflection of me, and essentially we are all reflecting the same things to each other, and we can all be mirrors of that bliss frequency. Essentially, this is what we're here to call for and what we're here to invite people to participate in, to be part of the bliss frequency. And to, yeah, so, and this is our plan and our mission to really save us all.
And
So save the all.
perfectly. You know, we've been for some years working with Bridget Nielsen, for example, on healing ancestral memory and ancestral trauma, lucid dreaming, and doing the rites for healing of ancestral memory. These things all fit together, obviously. And it's just that Dalia seems so close to the root of this fractal when she suddenly realized in detail how she was inside that family of the Apkallu, Enki and Thoth, and saw just what it felt like to be incarnated as Tutankhamun and Jesus, saw the pictures,
Yeah.
and said, why are they needing to work this out through me?
Well, it's because it was me. It's because when I plug into my higher self, who is Thoth as my guiding heaven. Thoth is the intelligence, my guide in heaven. Thoth is the intelligence, the keeper, the scribe, the keeper of the memory. Thoth is, you can call, like, I don't know, supercomputer, that's a lame word, but it's a huge intelligence.
You
And
ask
it
the,
carries
ask the
wisdom.
Templars who they were obeying. They all are clear. It's Thoth. No other. It's absolutely Thoth. It's the same. This is the Grail bloodline. This is all. And you see what, if there's a turning point in the gene pool of Earth, it's when Enki and Thoth decided, oh, we're going to, and so this is the bigger picture of the karma. Suddenly that Anak bloodline is now entangled with this human bloodline. And, Elena says that Enlil Yahweh was the bad guy, but actually Dalia says that Enlil Yahweh was actually obeying the law, which was hacking up their DNA was illegal, or at least, and so now there's some karma which needs to be sorted like a good fight in an Irish bar.
Yeah, I'm here to sort Dharma, which is like, yeah, the effects. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to relay the entire Tut story, but I can tell you that the Akhenaten Nefertiti was not a match made in heaven, let's just say. The union between Akhenaten and Nefertiti was not a match made in heaven. And
it was heaven, but actually, and they knew what Tantra was, but they didn't quite.
There is always going to be a problem with when humans want to take over the power from the royal bloodline because they think they can, and they don't understand how that will have disturbing effects on the collective, let's just say. So the line of Tut was not able to continue. I was not able to, like me as Thoth, I was not able to bring a inheritor, a child.
There was inbreeding. There was all kinds of trouble. So there was
definitely all kinds.
There was scoliosis. There was
yes, and I had disability, and not unfortunately, it is my duty, but I have been carrying the trace of this disability with my body all my life, and I never understood why I carry so much pain in specific areas of my body that relates directly to the life of Thoth. And it was not until my plasma experience on this earth that I was able to retrieve the memories that led to that. So you can spend your time as a monk on the mountains of Tibet for years until you achieve a Kundalini experience, or you can go with pure intention and have a session on Therify, for example, and go to the next step of where you need to in terms of remembrance. But open mind, pure heart's intention is the most important thing. So I was saying, I don't know whether to go deeper into the Thoth or whether to go back to the spaceship experience, or
the sense that if Thoth could process the pain of the death of Tutankhamun and where it went wrong, and indirectly the Jesus story is parallel, then that could help enable the next step of the mission, which is Adam Kadmon, teach the kids how to have a soul.
Totally. And this is what we're here to do. You and me, Dan, in cooperation and connection, is to really save the children's soul, first of all, by teaching the parents what they need to know to understand the threat that really looms over their pure soul. There is an enemy, but it's not about pointing fingers, but there is a foe that humans must defeat. And by saving their own souls, by protecting their soul essence. So
maybe you should tell a little story of how Thoth helped you save the kids in the schoolyard. Is that relevant?
Yeah. So I have been not just communicating with memory with Thoth. I have also been let's just say downloading or plugging in like the grid as we spoke about, and getting the Ka, which is the living essence. So my Ka has been connected to the Ka of those that come before me. And we're working now with the skills and the powers gained. Like Thoth had that ability. Akhenaten had every one of the Tuthmos lines. They had, let's just say, their superpower. And by me being plugged into the grid, I can access Thoth's, superpower. But Thoth has such a tragic, disabled life that it's really about just reliving the pain and clearing that, which I'm in the process of doing. And I have done the majority of the work when it comes to that. Thankfully, it's not done. I'm still doing it, but there's more to be done. But let's just say a huge part of reliving the experiences. I know how he died, and I know who killed him, and I know for what purposes, and we can make maybe a whole episode about that, because there's much details into that.
Yeah.
And so, but what I'm trying to say is, as Thoth, I can connect to Akhenaten, his power. So every one of them, they had their own power, and Akhenaten's power was this. And I connect to his father, Amenhotep III, and so on and so forth. So there is the power in that lineage that is embedded in a human body, but there's also the higher self, Ka, that I can receive and fix the grit, basically.
Yeah.
And
the example of how you did that for that, was it a Steiner school in Berlin? I mean, is that an example?
It was, yeah, there was specifically, I've done that in schools, in parks, children parks. I've also went to cemeteries where there was the trauma of the wall. So I've been working, in my time here in Berlin, I've been working to send the stuck souls home. It's the Lazarus operation, you can call it that. That would be the...
That's what they called me in the Reverend Mothers. They called me.
Yeah, I kind of saw that, and I thought that would be a clever name to describe what I was doing. It's the Lazarus operation.
The Lazarus effect, another name for the movie.
Yeah. So I went in, and one of the very first things he had me do, and we did together, is we went into the cemeteries right next to the wall. And because they built the wall right next to these cemeteries, the souls couldn't leave because they thought they were stuck there. And unfortunately, we don't have enough shamans that still carry the method of sending the spirits home. So when you have stuck spirits, it also creates distortion in the fields, and it creates a void, and it creates all kinds of messes. And
lack of fertility and trauma, all kinds of trouble.
And misery, let's just say.
Professor Rowell is teaching about this, releasing souls in the grid, like where there are wars. It's huge and critical. So that you had the power and skill to do that.
I had the power. I went in, I walked through the cemetery. He would extract, let's just say, he would call all of the spirits, and he would extract the, let's just say, the ones that we consider to be stubborn and not well-intentioned ones. They're latching onto the earth existence because they had too much power, or they had too much money, or they were selfish, or and they didn't want to leave. And these are the ones we had to extract by force. And this is where the Ka comes in, because you have to come from a higher array power to be able to, let's just say, tame some of these entities. So it's not easy work, but it's something we're absolutely capable of, thankfully, with the higher self guidance of Thoth and Heru, Horus, which is my soul, who I am. I am guided by Thoth, but I am a galactic messenger. And so my soul as Horus is who I really am. And Dalia, Dalia's family agreed to take me in. And I teleported, Horus teleported his soul into me in my childhood. And with him comes all of the memories embedded into my body. So all of the traumas are embedded into my body. And what I'm doing now is clearing this trauma from my body, which comes from the Horus. Horus is the traveler. He's the one that travels. He's the one and the astronaut. He's the astronaut that travels. And this is who I am. Thoth is an essence. It's a higher being. This is the intelligence that guides me. But the galactic traveler is Horus. And so they all, if you see their ancient Egyptian images, they all have the scepter. All of the family, they all carry the scepter in their right hand. And I'm not carrying a scepter, but my right hand is, well, is how I channel energy. So
they called it, the one name for it was the Waz scepter. There was a piezo device on a stick, and it's literally like the thumper in Dune. You could call a sandworm dragon current. I mean, there's many meanings for this.
Yes, or the plasma dragons.
Yeah, and Enki's lightsaber, the Poseidon's trident. I mean, there's many levels for this, and this is the center of that is the piezo, which is now firecrystal.com. So that's unpacking beautifully. But the point is that after you did this work in the cemetery, and after you did this work around the schoolyard,
I want to speak about the school because, the school, I went there and I went around it. It was a Waldorf school. I'm not saying anything against specifically, but it was the specific school that had major entities latching on there. And I noticed the same type of entities latching on around Children's Park.
A lot of parasites.
And these distortions, these entities, they have a frequency, and it's a frequency of distortion that keeps on feeding and leaking energy from the grid. So the problem is these 5G towers, you can even go by yourself and just go around, walk around in a major city, walk around children's schools or children parks, parks for children,
and
you will
5G antenna right in the school and the church steeple. It was horrible.
You will always notice that they are placed strategically, beaming at the playground where children play.
The parasites.
Yes.
Oh, Mary.
Yeah. And this is a huge problem because I don't know. People don't
see it. You could see those
I
parasites.
could see it.
That's the point.
And this is the communication I received from Thoth directly, even before going to Berlin, when I was still visiting you in south of France. And I received the message wide and clear. It's a soul snatching frequency that these towers are emanating, transmitting. And they're targeting the children.
Soul snatchers. Oh,
yes. Man. And I know we will go deeper into tracking those frequencies, because the way to counter this is to expose them. And when you expose the signs behind them, you disable them. Really, it's that easy.
Yeah. And
when you expose them with bliss, I counter them with bliss. So I create the Maat field in the park, and I use it as a webbing around the park, a webbing of protection. And once I do that, I go into the park itself and pick up any of these latching entities, parasitic entities. I gather them up. I give them a chance to fractalize. I give them a chance to vibrate on the fractality field, on the Maat field. But these are really stubborn energies, and they only want one thing. Think of a predator that only wants to eat the deer or something. You cannot convince a hungry predator to how about we all coexist? And how about you turn into a vegetarian? It's not going to listen to you. So there is an act of taming, but I have to say, in the cemeteries, some were lost souls. So not all of the cemeteries, most of them were lost souls that just didn't see the way out, and they were just waiting, lost, confused. So this is also part of the work, is to guide the lost souls back home. But then the parasitic entities, these are the ones that they either embed or they have to be destroyed. And so this
imploded and burnt.
Imploded
and burnt. That what goes through the center of implosion has to be a shareable wave or.
Yeah, exactly. And then you basically destructure them. You release the spirit of them, the vital energy that was keeping them alive. You release it back into source, not into a black hole, I would say into a blue hole, because this is the blue hole that we can recycle into, that's connected to the blue star Taurus. And my lineage is very much connected to the blue frequency. So you will see it in the lapis lazuli and the psilocybin mushrooms. You will see it in anything that's really very much blue. And then you have the golden frequency, that's solar energy. So the blue and gold are very much, and lapis lazuli has both gold and blue. So you'll see how.
Don't it make your brown eyes blue?
Yeah, it tends to do that, right? When it mixes with red blood, it turns into blue, and this is part of the alchemy.
Yeah, which the Hebrews didn't have the ability to see blue originally, and we have been teaching the physics, and I do mean the physics of the rapture, why the guns will melt in the plasma, and why the lost souls will all be released from their graves. This is the plasma physics behind. You do not want to be the left behind. We now know what the fundamentalists are talking about, and it's plasma physics, and it is the return, not of Issa, Christ, Jesus. It is the return of the intent of the family behind, which is the grail in our own blood, ultimately.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have to communicate, since you mentioned Issa by his name, I have to communicate the truth of how he feels now, which he feels also like he failed his mission, because look at what's happening now. He failed to deliver his message to, you know, at the time, the tribe. And then look at what they're doing now. It's an unfortunate thing. But I just want to say that, yeah, we're here to correct things and to be able to relay the correct message and the correct frequency for the all, and to offer the solution and the remembrance. And it's very important that we call things by their name. So I just want to point out that the city that is known as Jerusalem was part of a bigger country in the Canaanite times. It was originated as the city of Or-Shalom or Or-Shalim.
Shalom.
It is not Israel, and it is not Palestine. And we must call them by their names, and we must call her by her name,
Shalom,
which is the mother of Or-Shalom. And it's important to know that Shalom or Salam in Arabic, or Shalom in Hebrew, it means peace, but it also means wholeness. And this is what we're talking about repairing the Maat field, the magnetic field. It's to bring things into wholeness. And the work has already been paved, and for her to awaken, she has woken up. So I just want to tell people it's only a matter of time until the distortion and the infection will be repelled from there. And what we can do as participants in this process of regenerating and repairing the field, the Maat field, is to speak the word salam in Or-Shalim. Salam in Or-Shalim. Salam in Or-Shalim. And you can say it as a whisper, or you can think it in your mind and have it be your mantra. And this is how we save that place where the tribes were coexisting together, and they must coexist together now. And things must return to the origin story, and things must return to the original names.
Original. And, you know, I had this discussion with Elaine also. I had that thought Uru meant ancient Draco, dragon blood, which it is, but more correctly, Uru meant Stargate or portal, as in Uru Asa LM Jerusalem, where Asa meant queen or royal, or the royal line in this case. And the L is the place of the phase shift translation of vorticity, where you embed in the longitudinal array, literally the portal, and the war is always over the Stargate. So Uru Asa LM is a prelude to understand a deeper meaning from Dalia here, or Shalom, literally the portal or the doorway into peacemaking. And peacemaking is only defined by implosive negentropy. The peaceuniversity.net, we know exactly the physics of peacemaking. It's the centripetal force that is negentropic and makes peace. And so learning the science of this skill fits perfectly the problem of the politic today.
And we can think of this place as a pilgrimage place for everyone on earth to go back if they want to be close to soul, if they want to be close to ancient memory. Because what happens is, as we diverge into the earth and go further away into the west or the north or the south, you're able to implode anywhere in the world. You're able to access ancient memory. I'm here to be an evidence of this, that I had my implosion experiences places so far from home, my home being Egypt. So you can always go back from where the distortion is, find a place that will host you in peace, that will allow you, preferably a place close to water, and you'll be able to remember your soul and to remember who you are and plug into the higher array. And then that makes then the geographical, physical location of what this country represents a relic from the past. It's nice to see, but it is absolutely not essential to be there to embed into the higher array. You can embed into the higher array anywhere in the world. And we can just honor these ancient places as the starting points of where ancient galactic family came and seeded the earth with the knowledge and included the earth as part of the Milky Way galaxy, which we all come from. The earth then becomes a daughter and a sister. to our ancient civilization, and we're here to extend the light of the Creator all across the universe.
That's great.
Because the danger is the disconnect from the heart, the soul of God, the gold, and you must find who God is to you from within your soul, your own personal God, your own personal connection to the gold in the soul, to the light of your soul. It is your personal responsibility to find that. It is not taught in books. You can use them as manuals, as guides, and use your discernment, because there is distortion. Any message in a distorted field will be distorted eventually. So you want to always consult with your heart and consult with your inner guidance and your connection to higher self. And this is the most important thing at this moment, to keep the connection to God, Father, the Creator, lit up. We must continue that light trail between the Milky Way. Yeah.
It's so beautiful, and you're so powerful, and your evident sincerity and deep, pure intention here radiates powerfully, and I honor that. I think it's fabulous. And I think that, so then we should plan, the next time we're going to start maybe by more into the detail of those incarnations, the Tut Jesus story, but then more detail into the process you use to release these dead spirits and heal the cemeteries, and you saw the light afterwards, and then what you did in that schoolyard, and you saw the light afterwards. So we really will go into more detail in this hygiene. And finally, on her personal quest, Dalia is getting deep insight into the long-term intent of the Thoth Enki bloodline Horus mission, and related to what we call sometimes Adam Kadmon, which is restoring soul to the whole lineage. So these themes will be continued in depth on another occasion.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. Much love.
We continue.
Bye-bye.
And Dalia is on her way to Egypt, by the way. So the plot thickens. Oh, okay.
The plot thickens, indeed. Just remember, salam and Urshalim. And thank you very much.
Urshalim, Jerusalem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Salam.